Hey Marvel fans, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host Name, and this is the Nerdy Lair. And finally, I've seen Thor: Love and Thunder, just coming out the movie theater, giving my first thoughts, my first reaction, just what I think of the movie, my overall rating, and how I think it compares to all the other Phase 4 Marvel movies so far. So starting off, I think this movie was pretty silly, pretty goofy, right? Like it was a lot of jokes, a lot of funny stuff, but not as much as I was thinking. Like I think a lot of people were making it out to be like really crazy and ridiculous, but I just didn't see that. I didn't feel that. I feel like it was right there with Ragnarok, maybe a little bit more. And I actually really enjoyed this movie. I think it handled like all parts really well, like mostly. And I think the relationship between Jane and Thor was like my favorite thing in this movie. Like I think it was handled especially well, and I just really liked those parts. And I think this version of Mighty Thor is probably like, I think I like it more than the comic version. And I think the balance between these characters was done pretty beautifully. And I think it gave this movie some heart and some seriousness and just that like love and maturity that I think it needed. And like there are so many parts of this movie that I just like loved, like seeing New Asgard, like Tooth Snatcher and Tooth Grinder, like Thor giving all those kids like the power of Thor and using like the Thor force. Seeing Heimdall's son, seeing him get trained, like that's crazy. I love the future implications for that. Him having the same power as his dad, that's amazing. And I mean, of course, seeing Eternity was like very cool, and just like in general seeing like all those gods and like different realms was amazing and exactly what I wanted from a Thor movie. But I do think it's a little weird that like the Eternity, like the cosmic entity Eternity, is used as like a wishing totem. Like didn't speak, didn't do nothing, it's just like there as like a statue. Like I don't know, it seemed a little weird. But like having like a child of Eternity, like Thor's kid getting reborn, and like the child being like a mini Eternity, seems really cool. And I think could have some implications, like maybe Captain Universe type situation, like the MCU's version. I don't know, but her having like godlike powers and Thor being like a dad, I think it just does a lot for the character. Gives him a different, focus, a different storyline. Like it's just a pretty cool thing, and seeing them like go into battle together. She's pretty snarky, pretty cool, pretty funny. So like I loved it, and I think this movie has a lot of heart, a lot of family, and it's just very cool and it's fun. And basically, it's just a good time. Like it's just fun. Like that's the best way to explain it. Like that three-letter word fun is just the best way. It's just like it took me along for the ride. I didn't really care about the missteps, because there were missteps, there were weird parts. I'm gonna talk about more of that later, but I didn't even care about it because I just really enjoyed this film. And speaking of Thor, I felt like he was handled pretty well. And I mean, he is pretty jokey, and I felt like he was a bit silly, but he still felt like Thor. And he just has a maturity and awareness that I think the Thor in the first two films just didn't have. Like he's kind of like a child or a puppy, right? He's 1,500 years old in those movies. Like he's not, at that point in the comics, he's like pretty mature. Like he knows what's going on, he's experienced, he like had Asgardian teachings, and he just knows things from fighting and having different adventures. So I think that shines through. And I think the Thor after Joe Quesada rebooted in the 2000s, which is my personal favorite, is captured like pretty much in this Taika Waititi Thor. And he takes a lot from those comic books like Thor God of Thunder and like Ragnarok and stuff like that. So like Thor was one of my favorite parts of this film. I really liked him, and I think he was done really well. And I liked what the character could do in the future. And him fighting Hercules sounds amazing. Like the son of Odin versus son of Zeus. Sign me up. I love it. Roy Kent as Hercules, like that's amazing. I love it. I love him in Ted Lasso, so I think I love him as Hercules. And I think he can bring that like arrogant bravado that Hercules has in the comics. Even though he's not that big, and maybe he could get bigger, maybe get that Chris Hemsworth workout. But even though I think he could do it acting wise, and I think his performance will be amazing. And I'm just excited for Thor 5. And I think Chris Hemsworth could probably play this character for like another, 6 to 7 years, maybe all the way up into Secret Wars. Maybe Marvel does like a soft reboot after like 10 years. I don't know, but there's a lot of possibilities, and I think we could get like other universe Thors and Jane Foster Thors and all kind of crazy stuff. So as it's been with a lot of Phase 4 movies, the future is hopeful. You know what I'm saying? Like, I've kind of recalibrated my expectations to be like, okay, this movie's going to be what it's going to be, right? And like the future, that's going to be all the cool, crazy stuff. Phase 5 is going to be insane. We're going to have mutants. Fantastic Four movie is going to have just dropped in like late 2024. It's going to be amazing. And that's what I'm putting my hat on. And I'm just going to take these projects for what they are for now. And Thor Love and Thunder was pretty cool. Like, it was just pretty cool. Now, like I talked about before, while I love this movie and I think it's great, I still think there are some weird parts. Just like with the editing, with the story, like there's some logic leaps you got to make. I don't know if you can. Your brain might melt trying to do it. And I think the movie, you just got to go along with the ride. You just got to not think about it. Like, just take it at face value and just go with it. That's the best way to go through it. And I mean, I enjoyed it. I mean, the parts I loved, I really loved. And the parts I didn't like, I kind of just forgot about. I didn't really care. Like Gore. I think there should have been more time with Gore, the Necro Sword, and just developing that character and that backstory. Seeing him slay some gods and like all that cool stuff was off screen. So like, this movie, like Multiverse of Madness, could have benefited from like another 20 to 30 minutes. Probably would have been helped this movie way more than Multiverse of Madness. But at the end of the day, I didn't really care. Like, I really enjoyed myself. I was really satisfied for this film. I had a lot of fun. I give this movie an 8.5 out of 10. And I think it was a great chapter in Thor's story. I'm excited for the future, and I can't wait. If you agree or disagree, leave opinions down below. Peace out.